everybody, my name is Anna Kate. This is my video for technology for science educators. We're going to be talking about the physics behind riding a motorcycle today. This is my friend Josh. He's going to be demonstrating for us. We're going to be hitting three main points today. Number one is going to be how does a motorcycle stay upright? Number two is going to be how does a motorcycle turn? Why do you have to lean over and how can you lean over so far without falling? Number three is going to be what can cause a loss of traction, aka an accident on a motorcycle outside forces such as a car, animal, or water on the ground. We got a lot to get over. Ready to start. To answer this question, we need to understand two things: the conservation of angular momentum and gyroscopic motion. The law of conservation of angular momentum states that when an external torque acts on an object, no change of angular momentum will occur. That is a complicated way of saying that unless an outside force other than gravity acts on a moving object, the angular momentum it has will remain constant. A super common example of this is the ballet dancer. When a ballet dancer does pirouettes, she spins faster as her arms come in and slower when they come out. The change in body size is the change in torque, which thus changes her angular momentum. Without the change in her arms, her angular momentum would be conserved. We need this understanding to get to know gyroscopic motion. And the easiest way to understand gyroscopic motion is to start at the tires. This is where all of the magic happens. Everything with rotational and translational motion and velocity starts right here. Gyroscopic motion is the tendency of a rotating object to maintain the orientation of its rotation. A rotating object possesses angular momentum, and this momentum must be conserved, as we learned previously with the conservation of angular momentum. The object will resist any change in its axis of rotation, as a change in orientation will result in a change in angular momentum. That is quite a mouthful. The easiest way to understand this is to imagine that this is the access point of the tire. This is the point at which it is spinning around. If the wheel is turning this way, then the direction of angular momentum is going upwards. This allows the bike to stay standing upright. Now, the traction with the ground and the friction between the tire and the ground is what keeps it moving forward. An easy way to demonstrate gyroscopic motion is this demonstration with a bicycle wheel and a string. The effect of the gyroscopic motion is stronger than the gravitational force, and this is what keeps the wheel upright while it spins. Because the wheel is suspended in the air and not in contact with the ground, it stays in one place rather than moving forwards. So, now we understand the basics of why a motorcycle can stay upright, but we still ask ourselves, how can a motorcyclist lean over as far as they do and not fall over? As we can see in the following video, professional moto racers can lean seemingly to the ground without any fear of tipping over. How can this be? The answer is rather simple now that we understand gyroscopic motion. As long as the tire has traction with the ground and the wheels are spinning, the angular momentum of the bike is going to be conserved, no matter how close to the ground the bike is angled. Now that we understand how a motorcycle can stay upright on two wheels, let's talk about how they turn. Now, there are a few different methods for turning smoothly on a motorcycle. For right now, we are going to focus on the simplest way to turn, turning the handlebars and leaning into it. The first thing that we have to understand is that a motorcycle tire has two velocities: rotational, the spinning on its axis, and translational, the movement forward on the road. By nature, these two velocities move in opposing directions and thus cancel each other out. Rotational, translational. When the biker turns the wheel, the velocities are no longer perfectly opposing each other unless, of course, the translational velocity shifts slightly to the right, matching the rotational velocity. By doing this, our overall travel path changes and we start to turn. Now, we have to lean. Because we are going through a curve, the bike is experiencing what is known as centripetal force. Centripetal force is a force that acts on any object taking a curved path, and it basically pushes the object outward, or away from the axis point of the curve. Because of this centripetal force, a great amount of torque is exerted on the bike in the opposite direction, making it incredibly unstable and wanting to fall over. The motorcyclist has to lean into this torque in order to make these forces cancel out and keep from falling over. All of this is done in an effort to maintain equilibrium. If all of the forces cancel out, then the motorcyclist successfully finishes a turn. Now here is the part that none of us are going to demonstrate, for obvious reasons. What causes a motorcycle accident? Other than outside interference, there's really only two ways a motorcycle can crash. Both of these involve a loss of friction. The first and most common mistake new motorcyclists make is a loss of traction in the front wheel by grabbing the brake too fast and locking it up. So what does that mean exactly, to lock up the front wheel? The first thing you have to understand is that motorcycles have incredible stopping power, with brakes much larger for the wheel than a typical car. About 80% of the stopping power is within the front wheel brake. You may be thinking to yourself, that's great, bikers should have no problem stopping on a dime if they pull that brake hard enough. Well, there's more to it than that. See, the physics behind the gyroscopic motion and the equilibrium between the translational and rotational motion all depend on the movement of the tire. If you take away all rotational motion while the bike is going 60 on a highway, suddenly your translational motion is much, much greater than it was before. And on top of that, you no longer have the benefit of gyroscopic force keeping the tire vertical. Suddenly, a moment of needing to stop a little faster than usual has the rider's wheel turning suddenly underneath them and the bike going down. We can see this effect in these clips. A common telltale sign of this mistake is when the handlebars go from being perfectly straight turned all the way in one direction with no warning, quickly followed by an accident. Because of this, one of the most important basic skills a rider can have is using good, progressive brake pressure, even in emergency situations. The second way a biker can lose traction is simply by leaning over too far. While the bike's ability to stay upright at a nearly 10-degree angle is incredible, it all depends on the tire's connection to the ground. And if a tire is leaned over so far that rubber is no longer making contact with cement, you're out of luck. Now, there are a number of other things that can cause a loss of traction: water, oil, debris, and even roadkill. But these are moments where the only thing lacking is the skill of the rider and their understanding of the physics behind their machine. Riding a motorcycle is a big responsibility, as the most dangerous form of transportation. But with enough practice and research, anyone can learn to ride a motorcycle. Stay safe.
Forget about me.